Good day, I'm Mark Rikess, and today I want to visit about the value creation sales model, a limited negotiations model that's being used by hundreds of dealers around the country. There are two benefits to the value creation sales model. Number one is you attract a more educated, gender-balanced sales force. Number two is you lower your selling expense. If I were a dealer, one of the things that would keep me up at night is the traditional sales model. In the traditional sales model, the top third of my sales force does a great job for me. They sell me units in volume consistently month after month. The middle third of my sales force hits a level of complacency. They usually sell me between 7 and 10 units a month. They don't get better, they don't get worse month after month. They sell just enough so we don't get rid of them and we keep them on our sales staff. The problem with the traditional model is the bottom third of my sales staff turns over every 60 to 90 days. That bottom third of the sales force sees over 50% of the guests that come into the dealership. My top third of my sales force works off more repeat and referral. That middle third gets comfortable at a certain level. So when you think about it, over 50% of the people that come into car stores are meted and greeted by somebody who won't be in that dealership in the next 60 to 90 days, most often creating a substandard sales experience. Another challenge with today's model is that dealers are trying to improve last century's model rather than re-engineer it. Last century's model is typically a four-square model where they're negotiating with a customer 3 or 4 pencils in the process. They're trying to steal or lowball trades, and there's multiple negotiations in the F&I department. One of the problems with the current model is it's too management-centric. They're in almost every dealership, and I've done this presentation well over 100 times, looked at a number of dealerships. In almost every dealership, there's one manager for every 2.3 salespeople. And that includes F&I management, BDCs, general sales managers, closers, anybody who's touching a deal. So if there's 10 salespeople in the dealership, you'll have 4 managers. If there's 20 salespeople in the dealership, you'll have 8 managers. This is a very expensive model to maintain. Also, supply and demand works. We're paying high wages for narrow skill sets. So rather than have cross-functional management teams, we have desk managers, for example. There's very few quality desk managers out there, so when the top ones are making a lot of money, it raises the level of compensation for everybody. So when you think about it, we've got a model where there's about 50% leakage, 50% of the guests are going to get a substandard sales experience, and it's an expensive model to maintain. And that's the model we have today in the marketplace. Maybe the real challenge is, where do I find qualified sales consultants? You know, back in the day, certainly when I was younger and when I was a dealer, we used to be able to make a $50,000 promise. Come on in, sell cars. It's a great job. You can make a great living, make 50 grand a year or more. And people did all the time. Well, today, and certainly over the last few years, that hasn't been the case. With margin compression and less money to pay salespeople, and less quality salespeople coming into our business, they're not making anywhere near that kind of money as the $50,000 promise. Also, people with natural sales skills are no longer considering automotive as a career path. What you obviously want is people with natural sales skills coming into our business. People who can sell anything. When they come in, we can train them how to sell cars. One of the problems is these people with natural sales skills are not seeing their friends, their neighbors, their relatives, their college buddies come into automotive and be highly successful. So they don't consider automotive sales as a career path. If anything, they see the negatives, the long hours, low income, challenging environment. So these people with natural sales skills will go out and sell computers, real estate, mortgages, software, almost anything but automotive. Also, one of the problems we have in our business is we're not attracting female sales consultants. We've done a number of studies for the manufacturers. We found that 7% of the sales force in automotive is made up of women. And most dealers will ask me or say to me, well, that's because we have long hours and weekends. And I say, I don't think that's really the problem, because when you think about women in retail selling, there's a lot of jobs with long hours and weekends. People who check you into hotels, often women, long hours and weekends. Real estate, jewelry in malls, whatever it might be. There's environmental challenges within our dealerships that cause women not to apply for the job. Most of you built your management department around people with natural sales skills. People who, when they were young, they stumbled into the dealership, they had these natural sales skills, sold a lot of cars, made a lot of money, moved up into middle management, ultimately general sales management, general management, and sometimes became a dealer principal. Well, today, Gen Yers and most women are not going to consider a job in auto sales as long as we have 50-plus hour work weeks, a command and control environment where the salespeople are hopping between a desk and a customer, and straight commission sales plans. Also, dealers are looking for something our society doesn't produce, and that's good negotiators. By definition, you want to populate your showroom floor with good negotiators, and our society doesn't breed enough of them. So there's a recruiting challenge when you're looking for good negotiators. So unless we change the sales process and sales environment to attract people with natural sales skills, we're going to be constantly challenged within our business. So just to recap this first segment, the majority of variable compensation dollars are flowing up to middle management, leaving less money for sales consultants, therefore continuing sales consultant turnover. Also, grosses are low. They're obviously low because of the internet, that being one of the key reasons, but I also think the grosses are low because salespeople are not adding value for customers. When you add value to a transaction, you can charge more. So having a more educated, more sophisticated sales staff that can talk intelligently about the product, know more than the customer about the product, can raise our grosses. Also, I think dealerships have lost a generation of sales management. When I'm in dealerships, I find typically 40-plus-year-old white guys managing 40-plus-year-old white guys. I don't see a lot of men and women in their late 20s coming off the sales floor full of vim, vigor, and vitality, people I can look at and say, I can make that person into a general manager someday, possibly even into a dealer principal. So it's time to change the sales model. What I'd like to talk about is re-engineering last century's model into the new model, which we call value creation selling. We define value creation selling, the formula we've got, is a commodity plus a differentiating experience equals price value. And I think what most people are looking for is this differentiating experience. I don't think they like spending 3 or 4 hours trying to find the lowest price on the planet in a dealership. I also don't think that they are price sensitive for $3 to $5 a month. What they're looking for is a differentiating experience. In absence of the differentiating experience, they will turn new and used vehicles into a commodity and shop long and hard trying to save as much money as they can. Let me share with you the mechanics of the value creation sales model. All vehicles have a posted price that's market-based price. We try to raise our grosses in this model because we have salespeople who can add more value for the customer. So we're going to have about $150 to $200 above market average. In this model, the salespeople do not negotiate. So we're no longer looking for good negotiators to populate our showroom floor, but looking for these people with natural sales skills. If the salespeople get the posted price on the window, they make a higher commission. If in fact they cannot close the deal, there's a 1 TO to management in this process. So we're leaving flexibility of allowing a limited amount of negotiation. You and your dealership set up a business rule. Let's say you'll allow negotiations for up to $200. In the model, the manager comes in, it's a one pencil in essence. They know they can negotiate up to $200. It's typically a quick and easy process that allows managers to either close a deal or not close a deal, but it doesn't make the salesperson have to hop back and forth between a desk and a customer. So the value creation sales model eliminates the command and control environment found in most dealerships. It also frees up our managers to develop people and manage a process. So our managers are no longer being what they are in most dealerships, which are deal managers. We now have managers who are becoming people managers. We want them to be a resource and support for the salespeople and help them develop their skills constantly. I want managers who are coaching, recruiting, and helping salespeople become better every day on the showroom floor rather than just negotiating and structuring. The value creation sales model is what you look for anytime you go to any retail facility. Whether it's a restaurant or a shoe store, you want a process that's fast, simple, fair, and one you feel in control of. The traditional model is long. We've done a number of studies for manufacturers and for dealerships around the country, and what we found is 70% of the vehicles are sold in 30% of the time a dealership is open. Typically that's weekends, 2 evenings a week in the last couple days of the month. Well, the problem with this 70-30 is that it takes about 4 hours or more to sell 70% of the cars. And that's a productivity killer, let alone a CSI killer. So when you think about it, if I could drive the time down from 4 hours to 2 hours, I would double the capacity. So when you think about, desperately trying to find good salespeople to populate our showroom floor, we're actually overstaffing our showroom floor due to an efficient time sales process. If you ran your service departments the way you ran your sales department, you'd be out of business. Also, we make the process complex. It's also inequitable for some. I don't want to sound like a values guy, but the person who takes most of our time, who grinds us the hardest, gets the best deal. The person who trusts us the most or is less educated pays more money. It should be the opposite way around. So beyond going to just eliminating the negotiations for the salespeople, I think there is more that has to be done. First of all, so there's some structural changes that are going to be needed to attract better salespeople. Number one is we need to move to a 40-hour work week. And that's not just being a good guy or an altruist to move to a 40-hour work week, but if I do that, I believe I can attract better salespeople. And I want people that have a work-life balance. I want people that can go out and watch their kids' soccer game and have a good time. Now, I live here on the West Coast, and we're open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and getting a 40-hour work week isn't easy. But we have some modeling that I can share with you on how to get closer to a 40-hour work week. Also, to attract good people to our dealership, we need a training salary. It's our suggestion that you pay at least $2,500 for at least 2 months. And the reason we want to pay $2,500 is I want to slowly work people into my rotation. And I'm not looking for, actually the cheapest thing you can do is pay salespeople not to practice on your guests. So I want to pay at least $2,500 to get people into my dealership and attract people with the right stuff. If I don't compensate them correctly and have that training salary, and I don't get people to come in and apply for the job, I'll be dead before I start. I also want to eliminate paying salespeople on gross profits. Most dealerships do pay salespeople on gross profits. Let me share with you the 4 reasons why I want to eliminate salespeople being paid on gross profits. Number 1 is I'm paying the most money for the easiest cars to sell, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. Number 2, about half the deals or more are mini deals in a dealership. And if I'm on a mini deal, I may lose my enthusiasm for making the sale rather than if I was on a vehicle where I can make a lot of money. Number 3, a gross-based pay plan is hard to communicate to somebody who's never been in our business. Just think about it. In most stores, it's something like, we get 25% of the gross on the first 8 units with a $400 pack. When you move to number 9, it's retroactive to 35%. You've already lost me if I'm somebody who's not been in the dealership. I don't quite understand how I'm paid. If I don't understand how I'm paid, it's less likely I'll take the job. Then finally, I hate to again sound like a values guy, but when you think about a gross pay plan, you're really paying salespeople to make as much money as they can off of everybody they meet. And that really doesn't fit with the values of our society today. Also, I want to make sure that I integrate technology throughout the sales process, that I allow my salespeople to use computers and go to websites that are popular that the customers are already going to, and even let them use Facebook. Facebook is sort of interesting for salespeople, and that is, you've probably been trying to figure out, how do I get my salespeople to prospect? Age-old problem. Facebook actually allows your salespeople to prospect to their friends and followers, and allows you to actually help your salespeople instantly create more business. And then finally, what I'm looking for is a competitive advantage on my showroom floor by having my showroom floor makeup look like my customer base. And that means in most dealerships, I want about 50% women and about 10 to 20% Gen Y. And again, I'm not doing this just to be a good guy, but if I feel if I have a dealership that looks more like my customer base, I in fact will close more deals. I'm always asked, how do I find sales consultants that can fit into this model? As most of you know, you're struggling today to find good sales consultants. I'm going to share with you 4 ways of attracting people to your dealership. They cost you nothing, and these are guaranteed to bring in the people with natural sales skills that are looking for this empowered sales position. Number 1, most of our dealerships use Craigslist, and most of them advertise every weekend on Craigslist for a customer service representative. They never say automotive sales. So you advertise for a customer service representative, talk about training salary, an opportunity to earn $40,000 to $50,000. You can say college educated preferred, you can say women and men, and you'll find a tremendous amount of great applicants looking for this job. It's a terrific source for bringing in people who want to take care of customers. The next thing we do is a recruiting placard. I'm looking for more women on my sales force. So we have a woman with a sign that says, "Now hiring." We talk about the benefits of the job, talk about training salary, no negotiations necessary, and we put that placard in our showroom floor, our customer lounge, and in our service drive. So it's a silent salesperson, a silent recruiter always recruiting for you. Also, you're satisfying lots and lots of customers for sure. So you want to quarterly send an email or a letter to your owner base and say, if you like the way you bought a car, you'll love working for us, and we're now hiring salespeople. And then finally, if you don't have it, you should have an employment video on your website talking about the benefits of working at your dealership. So what I want to do is build a customer-centered sales process around what most customers determine adds value for them. The more I can add value for the customer and wrap my sales process around what most customers want, the more likely I am to achieve volume sales. And I think there's 4 or 5 things. You can create your own list of what most customers want, but the list that I think is pretty accurate, if you had to condense everything, is most customers want a competitive price, they want a pressure-free sales process, they want to play the game with the cards face up, they want a lot of transparency. That's how they're used to buying goods and services today. They want a process that's simple, and they certainly want one that's fast. People today will trade money to save time. And then finally, they want it delivered by an empowered sales consultant. And let me again talk about that empowerment of sales consultants. What we're looking for are these people with natural sales skills. And a person with natural sales skills gets excited by closing their own deals. So the whole goal of getting these type of people in is not to insert management in between them and the customer, but to develop them so they can close their own deals and get excited about selling cars. So what I'm looking to do is to create a highly differentiated, high-value customer experience. So in the value creation sales model, I get asked all the time, won't customers take my price and run with it? And yes, some will. I'm thinking that about the 20% of the people that come into a dealership are the bottom feeders, people that will negotiate long and hard and will sell you out for $5 a month. But I think what most people are looking for is this differentiated, great customer experience. So what we want to do in the value creation sales model is to reinforce the benefits of how we do business throughout the entire sales process. So we start with a meet and greet. The meet and greet sounds something like, are you here for price information, product information, or both? Let's say they say price information. We say, great. Is that because of the way we price our products? And the guest will say, what do you mean? Well, let me share with you how we do business. Then we roll into a concept presentation, and in about 30 seconds we explain to the guest how long we've been in business, why we do business the way we do it, that we listen to our customers, and we find that our customers love everything about our dealership. We let them know that we've got a market-based price on every vehicle, and that price is competitive in the marketplace. Our competition does come and look at our prices, and we're okay with that because we know our prices are so competitive. Also in the concept presentation, we explain how we're compensated. I tell them as a salesperson, I'm not paid off the gross profit, trying to make as much money as I can off of everybody I meet. My compensation plan is based on volume sales and some customer satisfaction scores. So whether you buy the cheapest vehicle or the most expensive, I don't make any more money. So when we move from the concept present statement to a visual aid or flip chart, we want to overview the process in this visual aid or flip chart. When you overview a process, people will do more of what you ask them to do. Also, throughout the visual aid, we explain how we do business and why we do business the way we do. The next step is when we do a vehicle walk around, there's obviously a market-based price on every vehicle. So we explain to the guest how we came up with that market-based price, that we get information from our manufacturer about what the average grosses are in the marketplace. We mystery shop our customers, and we use supply and demand. We change our prices frequently, just like every retailer. So we're helping customers by educating them more and more about how we develop our pricing strategy, building value in the value creation selling process. Also, what's very different in our dealerships than in most dealerships is the interactive trade evaluation. In our model, the TO is done during the trade evaluation. When you think about it, it's probably the right place to have it done. Rather than when the horse is basically out of the barn in the traditional process, I'm inserting my manager at exactly the right spot, with the riding with the guest where the guest is most comfortable in their own vehicle. So I've got my manager there, and he or she really want to know two things. Are we on a vehicle that you afford and you like? So I'm going to ask the prospect every time, what vehicle are you looking at? I'm looking at a Camry. How did you like the way it drove? So by the way, that will help our salespeople get more test drives if they know my management's inspecting and expecting. If in fact I don't believe the guest really is in love with the vehicle that I'm selling them, then before serving up numbers, I as a manager will try and switch them to a vehicle that might be more appropriate for them. If they do like the vehicle and it's affordable, then I want to find out about the sales process. So when it comes to asking for the order, most people will still try to negotiate. By the fact that I've shared the benefits throughout the entire sales process of not having to negotiate, I'm going to get less pushback and close my fair share of deals. So let's talk about how you increase front-end gross profits. Once I have a sales staff that is very stable, highly educated, gender balanced, now I can improve my gross profits. And we think there's three things you can do to improve gross profits. Number one is have salespeople with extreme product knowledge. I want salespeople that know a lot more than my guests about the sales process. So I'm going to spend some time talking about how they drive the car, how long they're going to own the car, and take and elevate their knowledge about what they know about the product. If I can elevate their knowledge and help them understand the product better, I can charge more. When you add value to a transaction, you can charge more. Also, I want to counsel my customers or prospects that are caught between products. I think most customers are caught between products. Whether I buy a Camry, do I buy an Accord? Do I buy a new car? Do I buy a CPO? Do I buy a CPO? Do I buy used? Do I lease or do I finance? And if I, as a sales consultant, can honestly help you when you're caught between products, that adds more value for the customer. And finally, I want to be able to consult about affordability and financial issues. Just like a real estate agent would help me understand, I want my salespeople to be really smart about helping customers on affordability. So even if my salespeople aren't doing F&I, which some of our dealerships do have them doing F&I, but it's not something I would highly advocate, I will probably train my salespeople once I have a stable sales staff in F&I practices so they can add value for the customer and be more intelligent about talking about things like term and down, lease versus finance. You do these three things, you can improve your front-end gross profits. Also, the market has changed, what we call the transparent customer. When you think about it, if you're a really great used car dealer, you're pricing your products very close to market, pricing them online and negotiating in a minimal amount, maybe $100 or $200 at the most per product. Also, about 50% of your prospects that come in the door are women, and we know women dislike negotiations intensely. Also, Gen Y is making up anywhere from 10 to 20% of your sales, and in the Gen Y buyer, they clearly do not like to negotiate. So when you think about it, between used cars, women, and Gen Y, that can easily make up about 70% of your prospects that are looking at your store. These 70% really are not expecting to negotiate, and they also dislike negotiations in general. So most of the traditional processes are based around a shrinking owner base. Now we've talked about the mechanics of the value creation sales model. I'd like to share with you how the value creation sales model helps you become a low-cost producer. The first thing I've got to do is stabilize my sales staff. I want to make sure that I get a high caliber sales staff that, again, is highly educated and gender balanced. I want to offer a career path. So in our stores, there's usually an A, B, C level of a career path. A C-level salesperson is an entry-level salesperson. We work hard with them. We give them that training salary. And over a 3 or 4 month period, they have to hit certain performance milestones. If they hit those performance milestones, they become a B-level salesperson. B-level salesperson gets a little different compensation plan, a little different training, and starts to take less management's time. When those B-level salespeople hit certain performance milestones, they become an A-level salesperson. A-level salesperson in our model stands for adults, and I want a lot of adults on my showroom floor. And these adults are paid a little bit more than the traditional salesperson, and the benefit of this is they take much less time for management. Now when I have mostly A and B salespeople on my showroom floor, I can collapse my F&I department and start to become a low-cost producer by having less management headcount. I've now got one manager for every 4 to 5 salespeople, again driving cost out of my system. My team leader is paid out of 2 buckets. The one bucket is the finance bucket, so I'm going to make sure to incentivize them to make sure my back-end grosses stay above actually where they were before we started. And my second bucket I pay them out of is productivity. I want to pay them on sales consultant productivity, so they're always developing and managing salespeople for volume. If I get really, really good at this model, I might even collapse my team leaders and move more toward salespeople doing F&I. We've got about 6 dealerships right now where the salespeople are doing F&I all the way through the process, further reducing expense. When I get productivity out of my sales force, I can also reduce my variable compensation. One of our dealers, Sunnyvale Toyota, is the 10th largest Toyota dealer in the United States. We model a lot off of what Sunnyvale does, and their average salesperson last year sold about 17 units per person, and they paid out 18% of variable gross. So 18% of variable gross doesn't sound like a lot for the salesperson, but when I'm averaging 17 units per person, I as a salesperson can make a good income and the dealership saves money. So the higher I can drive my productivity, the lower I can drive my expenses and variable compensation. Also, we eliminate rate negotiations at all of our dealerships. None of our dealerships negotiate on rate whatsoever. And when you rate people accurately, more of your reserve dollars stick. So in our group of clients, none of them are on 75-25 split programs. All of them are on straight reserve programs, and with 93 cents out of every dollar sticking, they pick up about 18%. Also, most of our dealerships are very effective in using used car software. So we're again talking about driving cost out of the business, and we're seeing more and more inventory managers replacing the traditional used car manager. That person is now making $35,000 to $40,000, and so that decreases our costs as well by using people such to acquire vehicles and price vehicles in inventory, used car inventory management. Finally, when you price your cars to market, you improve your inventory turns. By improving my inventory turns, I'm paying less wholesale loss and better floor plan credits. So just to recap, I go to a cross-functional management team and I reduce my headcount by about 38%. Market-based pricing turns my inventory faster, eliminating wholesale losses and increasing floor plan credits. When I improve sales consultant productivity, I pay out less of variable compensation. Positive word of mouth that we get from the sales process drives more customers to our dealership and lowers our advertising costs, switching more of those dollars to digital media. So let me connect the dots in the value creation sales model. If you don't stabilize your sales staff and stop that bottom third of your sales department from churning, you're going to need a lot of management to go out and close those 50% of the deals that are at risk. So this is all about trying to find better salespeople. This, as we talked about, people with natural sales skills. We've got more women involved in our business, a more educated sales staff, and when we can do that, a lot of good things happen. It's sort of like a sports analogy. When I've got better players in the field, I'm going to clearly win my fair share of games. I always end my presentation in 5 questions to ponder. Let me share those questions with you. If you can answer yes to all 5, you probably don't need to change your sales model, but most people can't answer yes to all 5. The first question is, are your dealership sales processes significantly different than your competitors? The next question is, do you have competitive advantages that create incremental sales? Also, does your negotiating model attract a diverse, educated sales force with natural sales skills? Is your sales process built around what the majority of customers want? And finally, would you want your mother, wife, or daughter to buy a car from your store without your help? That's a value creation sales process. I thank you for spending some time with me, listening to the process. It's not easy. This is about cultural change. This is about commitment. But I'd love to answer any questions you might have. This is Mark Rikess, and thanks for spending some time with me.